Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of My Black is Transnational. We have here our special guest joining us. We kicking off season 6, and so we very excited to be able to kick things off and kind of get the season started with this guest. I've been trying to reach them for a while, just representing a entity, a media group that I've been a big fan of, Mr. Stephen Ojo from AfroBallers is joining us on the show. Brother Ojo, thank you so much for taking the time all the way. Where is it? Belgium? Where are you? Where are you?
I'm based in Belgium, but I'm from
Belgium,
Nigeria.
right?
Yeah, I'm just
Wow.
currently in Belgium now.
Wow, man. Yeah, so thank you all the way. 7 hour difference. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show at this time. It's noon here and it's 7 there. Yeah, welcome. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me here. Also, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So really before I get into, really trying to gist with you, I want if you could take a moment to talk to the audience, let everybody know, who you are, where you're from, what you do, and anything else that you want to say about yourself.
Okay. Yeah. My name is Stephen Ojo, and I like to call myself like a passionate follower of sport, whatever it is, American football, soccer. Well, sorry to the football fans, I call football, soccer, and yeah. So, and initially I started with soccer because I grew up in Nigeria, and that's like almost everybody's first sport.
Cool.
And so, but as I started to understand about the intersection between Africa, sport, culture, I started to understand that wow, there are so many Africans playing in the NFL. There's so
Mm,
many Africans coming through the college football ranks. There's so
yeah.
many Africans coming through the college basketball ranks. So I took interest in college football, now to the NBA to NFL. So now I cover like a wide range of sport, and so because of that interest, that's how I found myself with AfroBallers. And basically, what I do with AfroBallers, with the direction of the founder or the founders, Mr. Sage and Mr. Kelvin, just to sit at the intersection of, African sport in the diaspora
Mhm.
and, African sport back home. So
Yeah.
for example, if you are Nigeria and you're South African, you follow the NBA. Obviously, you want to know what Giannis is up to.
Hmm.
As Giannis broken this record, and in reverse, you also want to know is Giannis doing something that sort of taps into his
Okay.
cultural side. Being originating from Nigeria, moving to Greece. So all those things are things that we do. At Afro Brothers, catering to the interest of both sides and just
Yes.
like creating a mesh point between those sides for for representation and for engagement. So yeah,
Yes.
that's what I basically do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you all do an amazing job. I really, really am in love with what you all do because I am a huge sports fanatic, and anyone who knows me outside, I am a huge. I mean, with the exception of maybe even I can even just say yeah hockey just a little bit, but like yeah, but I so before we even get into sports because that might take another time. I don't want for the audience. I want to start with you because you mentioned
Okay.
the idea of growing up back in Nigeria, and
Yeah.
so I want to take it back to Niger, right? Like coming up there and sport, like what was it like? And then we can then jump into what going overseas and how you got to overseas and everything. But coming up in Nigeria, what was growing up back home there for you? How did sports come into your life there? Like, just tell us that story of your origin.
Oh, okay. So yeah, grew up in a family of two. I just have a younger brother, and it's just so initially I was interested in sport because sport served as an outlet
Mm.
for me. Uh, I would say first off, I saw sport as an outlet to like move class, like family class. Like, okay, I wanted my family to be like in the upper class
Yes.
because where I grew up like in the rural side of
Which side?
Lagos.
Which
So
side? Lagos.
uh, you might not know it.
Bro, just say it.
Let's just say the mainland side, but not all mainlands like the rural side, but like if you
Where,
go,
like, where are we talking about? Like
Lagos
Agbara,
Northern.
like where?
No, no, no. I grew up in a place called Fagba.
Oh, Fagba.
Fagba.
Oh, I know Fagba now. Like, I'm not born. I was
Okay.
born in Nigeria. I was in, born, like, I'm a Navy town boy. So like, I came up. My pops was Navy. So like, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So I
nice.
grew up. I'll tell you. I'll tell you my own story when you finish your own. But like, yeah, it's
Okay. I thought you were actually US born or something,
no,
but
no, bro,
okay.
no.
So yeah, I grew up, Fagba area, and so sport for me, served as a way of just like moving class because most people, around that side, that's just how you see so many people that grew up around your area, play football. Like one or two just try to break it out of the
Yeah.
hood and be like, oh wow, see, because there was a guy then we used to play ball with. His name was Ganyu. His name is Ganyu. I don't
Mm,
know where he is now, but he played under 20. Went on to play in Cyprus and some leagues. So everyone always we saw him as like a role model, and we all wanted. And because of just Ganyu, like his whole family, changed for better. So we all, saw sport. Okay, yeah, this is our way out, like to just be great. And so, but yeah, I chased, being a footballer for a while, but it wasn't it wasn't to be. But I would say, luckily for me, like education wise, I was doing really well. So I would say like that's the case for most people that grew up in that area because people just want to follow sport. They just
mm,
drop out of school. So I had a couple of friends that went that route. Some it worked out for, some it didn't. So, but luckily for me, it didn't sport didn't work out. But yeah, so I went to school. I stopped sport altogether. But even my decision to even focus on school was still motivated by sport because I went out to study law, and I all I wanted to do was I wanted to be a Georges Mendes. I wanted to be a sport lawyer. Like it wasn't even. I didn't think too deep when I said I wanted to study law. It was just I just want to be a Georges Mendes. I want to
yeah.
be somebody that acts as an advisor to these players. So yeah, I did that. So across my university life, I think that's when I started to grow much more and more relationship with sport.
Mm,
In my third year, I was the sports secretary of my faculty. So, I just like progressed, and yeah. So I would say all of my life I can categorize it as sport,
yeah.
and yeah. So that's like me in there.
So, but Belgium, like, how did that happen? When did you go?
Yeah, so basically, I'm not even. So I'm just like I'm just here like temporarily, anyways,
Okay.
because I do like some consulting work also.
Okay.
So it's kind of like under the radar. So, but
Oh,
that just made me
okay.
come to Belgium, but like just temporary. So
Okay. So do you still go back home? Are you still
yeah,
in Nigeria? Okay.
yeah,
Is that like main headquarters, or are you gonna base
yeah. My
yourself?
base is Nigeria. My base is
Okay.
Nigeria, but
Okay.
I just like operate in different places because I
Ah,
want to sit. Yeah, I want to sit at the intersection of like the diaspora and back home sport
yeah.
work.
So
Yep.
so then this is very interesting because now we can kind of get into. I'll kind of give you a little bit about me, right? So for
Yeah.
me, because there's some similarities, a lot of the things. I mean, maybe until probably by the time I reached maybe like 18, 19. But a lot of the things in my life were motivated by sports.
Yep.
Um, I was born in Nigeria and I came to the US by like 1997. That's about 8 years old. But,
Mm-hmm.
I still would, I'm still, of course, the people back home,
Mm-hmm.
Popsy and then other family members. So you still, of course, stay connected. You come and
Yep.
visit. I mean, Chris, when you're on break or something like that, you come to US, come and do school. At some point, you think you might come back home, but what
Yeah.
opportunities present themselves, you take advantage. So
Yep.
anyway, no, because my whole initial thing was when I came to the US, that's when I learned about baseball. You
Mm.
know, I
Okay.
love baseball.
Okay.
And that's something that because for me coming up when I was in Nigeria, Rashidi Yakini was like my favorite
Yeah.
football
Yeah.
player, right? In
Yeah.
Nigeria, I used to love soccer too. I used to love it, love it. And then I came to the US and then I learned basketball, right? And
Mhm.
so, because even to the point, I live in Chicago, Illinois, and I came in 97, 98. This was the height of Jordan, Jordan's
Yeah.
like here.
You
And
say you live in
so
Chicago?
I live in Chicago.
Yeah,
So
it must be tough supporting the Chicago Sox.
bro. Guy, we can talk about this things for like
Yeah.
ad
Yeah.
nauseum, bro. I'm trying to make sure that we can maintain time, but like I can
Yeah.
just.
Yeah. True.
It's a
Yeah.
painful, painful, painful experience. I'm a White Sox fan to the point. The White
Yeah.
Sox are my favorite team. Period. Right, and
Yeah.
it's a very painful like when you shot feel the thing and you hear like your throat, like it's like watching it hurts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I came in with the intention when I was growing up, peak of Jordan. I used to think Chicago was so crazy about Jordan. When I came to America, I remember thinking Chicago was called the Chicago Bulls. And I remember
Yeah.
thinking that was a name, and I thought, because this was Jordan's city. And of course, over time, I learned about basketball. I love basketball, American football, then became something I became interested in as well. Chicago Bears. Didn't really care too much. But once I discovered baseball, that was like, I don't know why I loved it. I loved the White Sox. I was Frank Thomas, and I got into playing the sports. I played baseball. And then I realized over time, of course, there's not that many people that look or even have a name like me, that play baseball, right? And of course, there are politics behind all of those things. But one of my goals is one day in this life to have a major league, not a major league, a little league, a World Series, Little League World Series team representing Nigeria, West Africa. I really believe that once we get, because as you've seen in terms of intersection of sports and how many of our people are in like just coming into different sports and making not just coming in but leaving a major footprint in different leagues across the world. I just know that at some point, I know we have Akil Adu, who's a Ghanaian, but other than that, once we have more people coming from the continent into that sport, is going to be trouble.
Yeah.
But I came in going into my career, I wanted to be a sports radio talk
Okay.
host. I wanted to
Wow.
do sports radio. I wanted to come in so I wanted to I used to listen to sports radio since I was like 11 years old. And that's how I learned a lot about sports, statistics, all the things that I didn't know that's even how people even kept track of sports. And those are the things that mattered. I used to think you just used to play it as a kid. But then I started realizing a lot more of how they organize that. And it started to become fun. And so I went to college thinking, okay, of course, I want to be a doctor just so my parents can leave me alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then of
Yep.
course I got a good passion of what I do in public health, and life went on. I learned about my transnational passion and all those things about connecting to, but I still in the back of my mind, similar to what you said, I started to notice many of our people would be in these sports. Many of them would have similar last names. When I first came in, it was when I was learning about sports, it wasn't that many of Nigerians or Ghanaians or anyone
Yep.
representing Africa. It was,
Yeah.
maybe you'd see, I think there was Christian Okoye. That was about as far as it went back from Kansas
Yeah.
City. And then later on, I started seeing, and especially in Chicago, Adewale Ogunleye, Amobi Okoye, Brandon Badenjo, Jerry Azuma. And I was like, all these people are like, they're African? Wow. Like,
Yeah.
and so that led me to even become more interested in all these different sports. And of course, in basketball, you start to see, of course, we all know Hakeem Olajuwon, but you started to see some of the other people who were playing other positions. They weren't just big men that were African, but you start to see other, players coming in, Giannis and all these other people. Like, and it was just like, wow, okay, so we're here, to Hama like seriously, and we're
Yeah.
leaving a major imprint. So, sports has, even as now with what I'm doing with my work, I still try to find ways to bring sports into the mix, really learning about wanting to discuss more with African athletes or children of African athletes to kind of see how does our African culture play a role in how we navigate sports? What's the motivation? How do we give back to our country, to our major homeland, other than just, charity work, but how do we continue to bring the culture very similar to what um, Okoa Amora is doing now with the Browns, Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Jeremiah, JOK. So like very, so there's so many of us doing amazing things, man. So I'm very curious to know that when it came to your observation of sports, where do you think our Africans really are having the most visibility right now?
Where in terms of like platform or what?
All of the above. Platform,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So I would say, I would say a lot. So a lot has really come into place to like make this whole thing about now everyone is like celebrating the Africans in the sport.
Mhm.
I would say the intersection with it coincided with the growth of even the industry, Afrobeat, and the exploitation of music. So now you see Burna Boy heading the All Star event. You see Thames, Rema. These are people that now are like global stars. So I would say people are much more interested in, you know, these outlets. They are seeing visibility on these different platforms because now everyone now knows that, you know what, it looks like, I don't like to use this word, but it looks like, oh, these are the hip guys, like these are the new guys now, these are the new kid on the block,
Yeah, it's
because
true.
everyone wants to listen to Rema, and from there you see a link up with Giannis, you see a link up with one other African star, and
Hmm.
it just becomes things that people blow up. So I would say, like, more and more African, and even this now has now impacted the way these athletes even carry themselves,
Yeah.
because now you see an athlete like Jeremiah Owusu Koramoah,
Hmm.
who is pioneer when it comes to just being reflecting his African side
To the
through
core.
dressing to game day NFL. And he won the GQ award for best dressed athlete, just dressing as an
Imagine.
his heritage. So, now more and more people are seeing it. The other time, Charles Omeneo too was wearing his local
Hmm.
attire. Just this Sunday, this defensive end with the Buffalo Bills too. I think what's his name, Jeremiah something Taylor. I forgot his name,
Oh, I know
but
you're
he
talking
also,
about.
yeah, he's a defensive end with
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills. So he also, was wearing his local attire, and
Hmm.
so this is how these athletes now are try to getting visibility, and in the process also exporting the culture, because now when you see whatever Jeremiah wears, he does like a post that explains, oh, these slippers is blah 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 blah. This is a Kante wear from Ghana,
Hmm.
and so, and more people now, more and more athletes um are starting to adopt these and really embrace that you know that side of them.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, there's more visibility now with the embrace, with the mixture of these elements, to then bring further visibility to the African culture. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Bro, you're saying something that really struck a memory for me because um there is, I mean, sports and pop culture, right?
Yep.
They're synchronous and they're on the same, they're on the same wave. And if one goes up, the other will also be influenced by that. And of
Hmm.
course, so in this podcast, I've had conversations in past seasons about the rise of it being cool to be African, right? When Azonto and
Hmm.
and it became a big thing and it became cool. And then of course, the Nigerians, we came in with our own wave as well. And then the stars started to emerge in the Afro beats industry and the
Hmm.
emergence with, your mainstream culture, right? And how now it's become, like you said, we're the new kids on the block. Now the Africa to the world movement has been going and it hasn't stopped yet. But the idea now is that it's cool to be African. Very similar to how maybe years ago, decades ago, it was very cool to be the Jamaican and from the islands. And now,
Yeah.
it's our turn. It's our turn
Mhm.
now to be able to, enjoy and bask in this light. But you start to see that as a response to that, children of African immigrants or those who are even African immigrants themselves are becoming more open and proud of
Yep.
their heritage, their roots, right? Not only, I mean, it's not like they weren't doing it before, but now it's like, let me bring the camera, to where we're going. I remember one of the first people that I remember seeing do this was way before. I mean, Sam Macho, I've definitely, I had him on the show a
Yeah.
couple seasons ago. Sam Macho was one of the people, him and his brother. But Ziggy Ansah was the first Ghanaian person I noticed to take someone to Africa, to take the cameras to Africa and show. He was used to run a small camp. He was a
Yeah.
defensive end for the Detroit Lions, and
Okay. Yeah.
he was one that was the first people to really bring that. And of course, OC Omenyora, and the rest of the people have done an amazing
Wow.
job now with NFL Africa, and they're doing amazing work to continue to bring it to the world, to even have that commercial in the Super Bowl to show, there's going to be at some point a game that's going to be played in Africa,
Mhm.
some way, shape, or form. But yeah, so the I would say the similarities, or I should say the synergy between sports and culture has played a major role.
Mhm.
I also think that with these new aged African athletes, I think a lot of them now, are very, very conscious, right, of speaking about what it is that it is to go back home, right? And a lot
Mhm.
of them now, I've talked to some athletes in the past who say, okay, we go back home. Oh, even or we even now, some of them even change their name. You know how before like some Africans would migrate to the
Mhm.
US, they take an English name. Then
Yeah,
now if you see like for example,
Justin Madueke just did
exactly,
that.
Matabuke, but the Baltimore, you read my
Yeah,
mind, right? Now
yeah.
he's changed his name to Nnamdi. There are
Namdi.
others, and there are others who are now saying, no, like, I'm no longer going to go with this English name. You're going to call me by, my original name that they gave me, which is also becoming another like point to show the pride that a lot of these athletes are taking. So
Yes.
in your field though, where do you stand as far as African Americans or Black Americans who are in the sport who are trying to connect with Africa, or like there's some athletes who want to, there's some athletes who don't, and here in the U.S. specifically, there's always been a little bit of a divide, right? There's a mini divide in the Black community as far as African immigrants and African Americans who are here originally here, and there's a tension because of the history, but I
Yeah.
think sometimes it plays a role in how we look at each other as a society. But I want to know in sports, what are your thoughts in regards to that? Do you think that's something that should be pushed forward? Should more African athletes like JOK or Bobby Okereke, or should they be able to continue to bring more athletes there, or should we be exclusive and just continue to do us for us?
I would say, one thing is if you have that background, it's your background, no one can take that away from you. And I would say there's nothing, stopping anybody from connecting, from doing something, but it has to be done genuinely. Like, it has to be done the right way. So in the past, we see in the past, there have been several examples of people just coming, just not connecting the right way or just doing it for photo ops.
Yeah.
You just come, oh, I was with this number of children. No, So now we actually see more and more athletes become smarter with the way they want to connect because, like you said, maybe if there's like a tension there, then you have to actually come first to listen,
Mm,
to understand, to you know it's not even bad if you take like a whole year just trying to understand the space, like, okay, how does it work, coming back to Nigeria, coming back to Ghana, coming back to my home, like how does it even work. You can even say I want to spend a month just living in Nigeria or living in Ghana, just trying to understand the space from a first person, like you living in this place, because that's how you now connect, you know, genuinely. Then that gives you the opportunity to be able to even identify relevant, actors, partners that you can collaborate with to then, you know, launch this initiative. There are countless example in the past where, you know, athletes engage people that they themselves are not even rooted
mm,
in
mhm,
the communities where they're trying to reach out for, and they partner with orgs like these, to reach out. And people are like, we don't see the genuineness of this you're trying to
mm,
do. Yes, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that, but it doesn't look genuine. Why? Because you're not using a local based organization, you're not using local based personnel, you're not using local based driven initiatives. So that's for me, well, from what we see, working with AfroBallers, like what I've seen, in the past, like if that has to be done, it has to be done, genuinely. So, for example, like we saw Avin Kamara
yes.
recently, come back home to Liberia for the first time. He actually spent time, in his village. He lived there, so he didn't just come, just, oh, I want to just do photo ops. He actually lived there, you know, embrace the environment. So things like that, just are ways you actually show that you want to connect genuinely. Because the thing is, you know, we Africans, we actually know our worth.
Yeah.
So when you come in a very ingenuine way, people actually call you out on that and be like, well, don't just say because you are American, you stay in Europe or you stay this place, you just want to come back and do as you like. No, you have to do it the proper way. You have to, you know, there are some communities you have to go through the chief, the bale, the
Mm,
different leaders, so you don't just sidestep So, but that's what is currently ongoing. More athletes are now understanding this and are actually going through this genuine. I call it like the genuineness route, like
Mm,
just trying to be genuine in your outreach. So
yeah,
yeah, I would say that's just my take on that, and even it extends to even you know what's it called, the African Americans. Like for
yeah.
example, if LeBron James wants to do something in Nigeria, nothing is stopping LeBron James from doing what he has to do in Nigeria. But you won't say, "Oh, I just come to Nigeria and boom." You just if LeBron James wants to do anything, oh, who are the partners? Who are the And LeBron James is a very very prime example. Like recently, he launched an initiative for, I think, is it women voters or something.
Yeah,
He didn't just
yeah.
say because I'm LeBron James, I just no. He actually brought Ineka Ogumike and
Mm,
some other women leaders, prominent women leaders to co-launch that initiative. So what he is doing by that is, look, he said, this is I'm genuine with this, but I understand that, look, I need to go through the right way. These are people that understand that space. I want to
mm,
do something for women voting and all that. Let me reach out to people that can, do it better than I can. And, you just stay there and it's your initiative, but you've identified the relevant actors and you are using them to, drive that initiative. So that's just the way it has to be done. That's my take on that.
yeah. So
Yeah.
where do you think sports is going? What do you think are the trends? What do you think is trending for us, for Africans in these various sports? Um, where do you think the trends are headed? Or do you think we can be able to have more independent leagues? I know, Luol Deng was, trying to do NBA Africa, right? And I mean, there are other, like I said, I mentioned OC and NFL Africa, but where do you think sports is trending for Africans across the diaspora and the connection back home? Where do you think it's going?
Okay, so talking about this now, it's this is, I would say, this is even an ongoing thing, that everyone is still trying to like understand. For example, we have the BL, the Basketball
Hmm.
Africa League. I would say where it is going is it's going to the point where you know the more, if you are like, in the past, if you were very talented, like it was going to be very hard for you to be spotted. Like,
Mm,
how do you even get spotted in you were playing basketball in 2014,
exactly.
2010? But now with the way everything has been so open up, it's so easy to get spotted. We on our
Social
platform
media,
alone,
social
yes,
media too.
yup, on our platform alone, we've covered about 2 to 3 athletes that have gotten scholarships to college football directly from Africa.
Mm,
This is now a trend. This is not even, and not just D1 schools. So Pape is in Boston. Is it Boston or FSU? No, there's one in FSU, Florida State.
hmm.
Even though right now they're not playing like a ranked team,
Yeah,
but
that's staying in
there's a
Florida
guy in
State.
Florida State. Went straight from Congo. There's another guy. Pape is in Boston College,
Hmm.
and recently we did like a campaign slash post for social media, and we highlighted like a defensive back, and on that post, I think Source Gardner or something, commented and like, oh, keep working, things. So I would say now getting to a point where if you are multi-talented, if you are good, you're gonna get spotted. So
Mm.
that's like one trend. But on the flip side, it doesn't really have the continent now because we can't really keep our
Um,
best.
that was what I was gonna wait.
Yeah, so that's it on the flip side, anyways. Because now, if you're really good, trust me, Kama Maluok, outstanding
Yeah,
prospect, but
yeah.
the side effect is he's 17 or 16. He's playing with Duke, and he's gonna go on to the NBA, achieve great things. So, but on the flip side, someone like a Kama Malu, maybe he ought to be playing in Africa or something. Like,
Mhm.
that's the flip side of it, right? Because he's a top talent, he has to go. So that's like the trend now, which is, you know, it's going to be a mixture of trying to maintain that balance. We're trying to see, okay, how do our best stay. But on the flip side, what then happens is that then creates a lot of social capital back home because, yeah, so Ikama Maluk now is signed to Clutch Sport.
Mm.
So I assume that's a big one because
Yeah.
club sport now is affiliated with LeBron James, Anthony
James.
Davis,
Mm-hmm.
friend, these big people. So that creates a lot of social capital. A Kamamalo can do a lot, based on where he is. So he can do a lot to change things back home. He can do a lot to, drive home investment, whatever
Yeah.
it is that he is interested in at some point. So
Yeah.
that's a way to kind of curb that, you know, exportation of top talent. So I would say like that's the emerging trend because now recently NFL Africa released a statistic. There are like 4,000 plus Africans in the league.
Yeah.
Is it or 1,000? I
400.
can't remember.
Yeah, it's a good amount.
It was a lot. So
Majority of them from Nigeria, but yeah.
yeah, majority of course, majority a lot. So and that did I say 4,000? Sorry, 4,000 player
400.
with like 1,000 or something, like thousands, anyways.
Yeah.
But so that's also going to keep growing. That's also going to keep growing. And those people, when they get into the league, they also want to also create, impact back home. So
Right.
that's going to be really interesting to monitor as a trend because that's also going to keep on, expanding. And you see, the NFL, doubling down on the continent as a
Yeah.
result of that. Because what I envisage is, once these players, become more and more, there will be many thousands of me that will just be interested in the NFL because this guy is playing in the league. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this guy is playing. That's how I fell in love with. Um, in my own time, it was what's the name of this guy, the running back, Junior Ajayi, Jay Ajayi, or something.
Oh, Jay Ajayi. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Played
it
for
was.
Miami, played with Philly.
Yeah, it
Yeah, yeah,
was. It was. I
yeah.
started foot American football 2017, so he was
Wow.
like a big dog then. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, Jay Ajayi, and fast forward from 2017 to this moment, like it has increased a lot. So that's what I saw. I remember specifically saying, I think I see a 10-year window when NFL will actually prioritize Africa, but
Mm-hmm.
it was even less than 10
Yeah.
before NFL, decided, okay, we want to come to Africa, we want to do this. So it's going to keep going on like that. So that would just be the trend, high talent go out, social capital come in.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are two things that you bring up that are really interesting. And this is kind of where I highlight these transnational connections because I had a conversation with one of the NFL Players Association reps here from Illinois. His name is Justin Staples, played for the Tennessee Titans way back when, and Cleveland Browns. And Cleveland's a hub for a lot of Africans. Same thing as
Yeah.
Jacksonville. A lot of Africans in Jacksonville, in Cleveland, and even parts of Atlanta. But we're everywhere. But anyway, so one of the things that I found interesting is that yes, right, because now you can be able to identify and pick and bring people straight. NFL has these NFL pathways, international
Pathway,
pathways,
international.
right? And you
Yeah.
bring in people, and I'm like, okay, on one side, you have the potential to create generational like wealth, right? You're able to change lives, similar to what you were describing about when you were coming up. That one person now can go, and you're making that. I mean, the rate naira to dollars. You know
Yeah.
how it is. Now you're talking giving someone even to just play one preseason game. You're talking about maybe giving them 10K, whatever. That's a huge amount of money that they can do just to even be on a practice squad, right? And so that can change lives. But on the other side of the game, right, even whether it's football or NFL football, whether it's basketball, whatever the case, they come here. Of course, they are able to open more financial opportunities. Some may reinvest, but also from a standpoint, they now have the opportunity to be able to kind of pick. You have some athletes now who, when we talk about, for example, Olympic sports or World Cup basketball or whatever sports, they have an opportunity to choose, right?
Mhm.
Whether they want to represent. So, for example, like with the U.S. basketball, you had Joel Embiid, who didn't want to play. He didn't play for Cameroon, right? He
Yeah.
played for the U.S. You have Bam Adebayo, who's Nigerian as well, but did plays for the U.S., right? Giannis plays for Greece. He never really. I don't think he's ever considered even playing for Nigeria. Like you have these things where you can reinvestment for sure in terms of personal business and marketing and things, but in terms of representation and really supporting, because if you put a lot of these Nigerian or African, not just Nigerian, but a lot of these African athletes, if they played for their home country teams,
Yeah.
I mean, the man, like, so I wonder, right? Like, would you consider that a drawback? Because to me, I think it's a little bit of a drawback because I think that there's opportunities for them to come and you can create a super team for it. So is it attributed to the country's resources and support that may be that may discourage them from doing that, or are there other things that you may think might possibly be the reason where a lot of these African athletes don't always come and play for their home team? A lot of the women do. I know a lot of the women athletes come back and do it, but I don't see it a lot with the male athletes in different sports, especially world sports.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that this question is like so many like considerations because
Mm,
for like a Yanis, for example, he was actually born in Greece. He lived
mm,
his whole life in Greece. So I would say, well, if he decides to, represent Greece, like that's really not a problem because, you know, we're entering an era of duality. Like,
absolutely, absolutely. But he made the video, bro. He made
yeah,
the video. He made the video, the movie that he did with WhatsApp
yeah,
about
yeah,
being Nigerian and coming
about
home. You
Nigeria.
get what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's the part too where you're like, okay, yeah, you proud of being Nigerian, so come and play.
yeah,
Just playing devil's advocate, but I get what you're saying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's true. But so the thing is, he's as Greek as you can, call it because
Yeah,
he grew up in Greece. He speaks Greek, So that's the era, that we're into. Like in the 90s, this was duality wasn't so much like that. I
yeah,
mean, we had maybe Akim Olajuwon. That's like the
that's
only
it.
thing I can really remember,
Mm-hmm.
But like in our era, like duality is a thing. So Giannis is as Greek as you can call it, as you can call him. But you can see that even as a dad, I think the right word to say is the balance
Mm,
because it's not as easy as anyone would just try to like project like, oh, why did Yanis play? You have to create that balance, and that's what he has been doing so good so far. You know. I think he came home, in partnership with WhatsApp, to do a documentary about his life.
yeah,
He came home one time to do like a basketball thing camp like with some kids, and so that's how he creates that balance. Same with other athletes. Bam Adebayo, born in US, grew up in the
mhm,
US. That's that duality. Um, well, with Joel Embiid, that's a little bit now tricky, but then again, in his own case, it's still the same thing as duality because he came into the US, at 15 or 16,
yeah,
learned his craft there.
yeah.
And according to him, he's doing it for his son,
Mm-hmm.
just to, prove to his son and, give his son an example. So I would say, in this kind of cases, it's a case by case scenario. And we've also in the same vein, we've seen players, you know, switch that up. Mobamba,
Mm-hmm. My
just
bad.
committed to play for Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
There are other athletes like that. That narrative is also switching. Born over there, they come over here. And
Yes.
funny that you mentioned this because this recently caused like a debate online. So there's a player I don't you know Mikel Obi,
Of course.
Nigerian football legend. So
Yeah.
he released the video where he was talking about how if you have the dual background, if you decide you want to play for the foreign country and you're actually good, you can wait and play. Like there's no problem. And he was saying things like, if you come to Nigeria, nobody's going to chase you away or something. But where he had the problem was, where you would wait, maybe you're 30 years old, then
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, they didn't call me. Okay, Nigeria, Ghana, are you available? Let me.
Mm,
It was like he doesn't stand for that. So there are various the variations of these, but what I would say is um with the guys or with the examples you mentioned, they are talented and they have that option, to choose. And that's what's available to them. And they make that decision based on certain things that they consider. I also don't want to go into, the background thing. Like, there's economic
yeah.
factors to it.
Yeah.
There is so many factors, because for example, like, the way some okay, for example, the way some countries treat their veterans, their ex-players,
Yeah.
some people can take that into consideration, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So there are some countries they pay their ex-players or something, pensions or something. So that might not be the example with some, African countries, So
Yeah.
those kind of considerations, it has to be taken into place. So, but one thing I am just personally, I'm like, if you are in the position where you can inspire, because some people, like, your commitment is way beyond just, oh, I'm trying to make the decision. Because if you commit, one player can change a whole program, like a basketball program, for example.
Yeah.
We see what's going on with South Sudan.
Yeah.
All of them,
Yeah.
most of them are coming from different part of the world, Australia, Canada.
Yeah.
But look at what they came together and said, we want to use basketball as a tool for change.
Yes.
And now I'm almost sure that, with what they've done with the Olympics, the build up and everything, so many young people in South Sudan, like, I want to play basketball. I'm inspired. I want to do this. So I would just say, like, for some of them that are in that position to actually inspire change, and they believe that it's more than themselves, I believe, they should take that commitment. But for me, it's not really that big of a deal,
Yeah.
because several factors are in play, and it's ultimately their choice, and they embrace the dual nature. So for Joel Embiid, for example, he still does stuff back home. He
Yeah.
still gives back home. So yeah,
Yeah, bro.
just
I know I can talk to you so much about just your perspective about it. This is very fascinating. But I want to shift a little bit gear. Just I want to shift gears a little bit to kind of talk about the AfroBallers just a little bit in terms of one thing. Like, how do you keep up with all the sports, the Africans in all these different sports? Like that, when I'm on your page, I'm just looking, I'm like, wow, they know, like, it's like everything that has to do with everyone that's African in sports across the nation, across the world, not even nation. I'm even being small minded. Like across the world, I'm like, you all have just a fingerprint or a hand, a finger on every pulse that's
yeah.
African in sports. And I just find that so incredible. And how do you keep up with that? It's like, how do you even know like what's going on? Like, is the team? Do you have a huge team? Like, how are you managing that?
So it's like it's a lean team, but lean but efficient. That's what I
Mm,
that's what I call it. So to be honest, it's really, it's not so easy, to really
yeah,
explain, but it's more about like research. So you just have to breathe, leave sport, like wake up, leave sport, and I think because of how wide, like, our players are, like, it kind of easy but hard in the same way, because
hmm,
you wake up every day, you're like, an African must have done something today. Like, it's just, you just smell it in the air, like, an African must have done
it's
something. So
something
it's
today.
like, yeah. So that's how we all wake up, with the team. We
Yeah,
have like writers, designers. So it's a
yeah,
lean team but efficient. So everyone knows that when you wake up, an African has done something today. Get to it
I
quickly.
love it. I
So
love it.
yeah. So be it local, be it foreign. Like, so we cover a wide range. So it could be someone back home. That did something really interesting. It could be somebody abroad. For example, recently we're just brainstorming, what can we do with, college football or something. We just realized, oh, nobody even knew, like, Jalen Miro is
Yeah,
actually, like,
he's
his
like,
mom is Nigerian. So I'm like,
yeah.
what? No one knew that.
Listen,
Like, so, and
his. I'm gonna tell you right now. His
yeah,
grandpa lives right down the street from me.
wow,
Like
that's really
he's
interesting.
like
Yeah,
he's Mr. Monroe, Mr. Milrow. I know he's like my grandson because I told him I'm Nigerian. He was like, "Yeah, my grandson, he's half Nigerian." And I was like, "Yeah, my kids are also half Nigerian." He was telling me, I was like, "Who's your son?" He's like, "Yeah, he played for Alabama." Just said it
Jalen, yeah.
casually, you know what I'm saying? Casually, like, "Oh, he plays for Alabama. He's a quarterback. Blah blah. I'm proud of him." And I was like, "Quarterback for Alabama." I was like, "Oh, like, wow, yeah,
Yeah,
small world." But I didn't know. I didn't know until,
we met
then
the
I
first
saw it.
time.
Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So we also, so because I'm mostly like in charge of like college football, because I'm the one who like kind of follows it the most on the team.
Okay.
So I was like, somebody, I smell it somewhere. Like, there has to just be like a quarterback that it can't just be, because in the history of the NFL, we've only had one quarterback whose parent, like, has like direct roots to Africa. Like, he came from Africa. So
Ooh.
that's Chris Oladokun.
Oh yeah,
That's
he's with Kansas City.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just,
he's
I
with
think it
Kansas
was
City
with
now.
Pittsburgh at some point,
Mm-hmm.
so he's the only one, so, and I was like, yeah, we have to do something that shows people that, okay. Then I was just like scrolling, like, that's just how it is. Like, it's hours of research. I know Alex Orji, like his name
Yeah.
is definitely very easy. So I was
Yeah.
like, there has to be, somebody. And it was look because I'm an Alabama fan, and it was
Really?
like I support Alabama, and it was like a shock to me because I was like, of all people, I didn't even think because he doesn't put the name like the middle
Mm-hmm.
name,
Mm-hmm.
but that's his name Oluwaseun. So I was like, okay, good, good, good. Then I checked, oh wow, Jalen Oluwaseun Miro, and so that's just how we do it. We break it down into different sport. You just know an African has done something every day. So what you just have to do, you have to get to the news quick, and
Mm-hmm.
do research. So it's like hours and hours of research. And also sometimes people, should give us the link. Oh, this guy has done this. Like, go check it out, and we check it out. You know, I would say like the taxing thing is trying to like decipher like what exactly is the kind of story like people would want to know because you
Yeah.
get sent several links and you
Yeah.
check it out. But I don't know if people want to know about these or things
Yeah.
like so the filtering like okay what people want to see and what people don't want to see or probably won't be interested to know at that
Mhm.
point. So you just have to filter all of that and yeah, so that's just how it is, lean but efficient and you wake up every day knowing that an African has done something.
I love that. And that's the feeling that I always have. I know that there's someone there and I'm so proud now. And so for you, I know that it must be exciting
Yep.
because doing college football, especially because for me, one of my favorite parts of the NFL season is the draft, right? And one
Hmm.
of the things that I found much joy in and pleasure now in is seeing all the names,
Yep. Yep.
first round, second round,
That's it.
third
Yeah.
round,
Yep.
all the way through the draft, just being able to say like at least I've counted at least 50 names in
Yep.
the draft that I come into the league. They're all African, some way, shape, or form, right? Even in the NBA, that's become one of my favorite things to do now. Before I used to just watch the draft, of course, because I was a fan, but now at this stage in my career and the lens that I use, I'm always looking and saying, okay, how many, right? Because just we're growing, right? At the back,
Yeah,
like
you have a Nigerian on your NFL team, Rome Dunze.
of course,
So
yeah, Odunze, right? Yeah, you
yeah,
see, so like we're
yep,
growing, right? And so
yep.
it's always exciting. But I wonder for well, let me ask this before I even start wrapping up. Do you think we'll have Africans playing baseball? And if you think so, tell me why. And if you don't think so, tell me why not.
To be honest, I mean, I won't really, I don't understand it from the American standpoint.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know how many, I've not really seen too many prospects like
yeah,
from the baseball world like that have African names or
yeah.
that route. I think so. Recently, we highlighted one Manami, something
Mhm.
is Japanese Congolese.
Okay.
And when we posted on the page, like a lot of people were, what? We never saw, that made me know that, oh, people don't really see too many
No.
Africans like in baseball.
Oh.
And so I would say like there's one guy, he's from Uganda. You posted videos of him throwing with stones in
Yes,
South
yes.
Africa.
I know what
He
you're
was
talking about.
brought to the Major Base League. I can't even remember his name,
The
but yeah, we
tryout.
posted it. Yeah.
I think he did like a tryout. I think they had him come and post. I
Yeah,
know
he
what
did
you're
like a
talking about.
tryout, and
Yeah,
I don't know how that.
yeah,
Yeah, but they brought him from Africa straight. But I
yeah.
would say like because so baseball is so what's it called now? It's so skill intensive. Like one thing I've noticed is the sport that is so skill intensive. It's not like we can't learn it. It's just that we don't
Takes
have the
time.
personnel
Takes time
to
too, bro.
actually craft it exactly. So
Takes
even if you
time.
check the NFL, like where do we play? Defensive end,
Yeah.
linebackers, because
Mm-hmm.
we hit, we can
Mm-hmm.
hit a lot. And it's not really as skill intensive as playing cornerback,
Yeah.
wide receiver. That's why
Yeah.
you rarely see like an African coming straight from Africa,
Yeah.
playing
Yeah.
wide receiver. Like it's so
Yeah.
high. So, and it's not because we can't learn, it's just personnel.
Right.
We don't have
Personality.
people. So that's another way even the diaspora can invest,
Yeah.
personnel. Do you know how to coach wide receivers? Do you know how to coach cornerbacks? You can come home, do multiple camps, train because it's a whole learning curve. So that's the problem with even with the QB sport. Like that's why we highlighted Orji and Miro because those are the two aside from Oladokun. So
Yeah. It's
that's the problem. Yeah, so that's the problem with baseball. Like it's so skill intensive, so it's going to be hard to like get. I mean, it's similar to cricket, but I don't even know.
Oh no, don't worry. I'll talk to you about it offline. But like this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
very
So
I can explain the
yeah,
game. But one other thing that I will add about baseball before we move on is that baseball also requires time, right? And the
yeah,
time because with baseball you go through the farm system. You have to go through single rookie league, single A,
okay,
double A, triple A, and then you get to the league, and then you still have to. And who has time for that? Especially when
no,
people are trying to make money, you're trying to hurry up. Which skill? Because you have some players who, at least coming up, you have some players who have to in college before African American players, or even African players, who say, "Okay, I can play football or I can play baseball.
mhm,
Baseball, long term investment. If I make it and I have to go through the hell that I have to go through, the money's guaranteed. But if I can do football right now, I can get the money now, and I can continue to do my best until I get to my second or third contract, and then
mhm.
we'll hammer, right? So it's that you don't, most people don't have the time to play the long game because the
Yeah,
money, the investment, if I'm going to the NFL right now, if I make it as a first round draft pick, I'm guaranteed to get at least 1 million or so. Whereby
mhm,
if I start with the rookie, with the farm system in MLB, I'm getting paid chump change, right? And I can be
wow,
doing something else, right? So
that's
that's not
tough.
enough to cover. So if you the huge disparity in amount in investment and money, whether it's
Mhm.
guaranteed or not, makes it influences the decision. So if you imagine bringing somebody from Africa now, you're saying, okay, well, I can bring you to the NFL to play defensive end, and all you have to do is run, use your physical attributes to be able
Yeah,
to compare to where in the, I'm giving you this baseball and I have to tell you now you have to hit this baseball that's coming at you 99 miles per hour with
yeah,
movement with this
yeah,
little stick, and you have to do that, and you have to be able to hit it at least three out of 10 times, and then you'll be good. And you have to also be able to learn how to do all these other skills. Like you said, they don't have the investment. Like if you go into the Caribbean and in the like in the Hispania, they have academies, right?
yeah,
These MLB teams have invested academies to bring in these young kids and
yeah,
train them in the skill of baseball, and they then are ready to be scouted. So that's the only thing. So that's why I'm hoping my dream, like I said, is to try to find a way to start to create more, put more eyes on Africa in MLB, and then have more academies and centers that can train kids to be able to do that. Because I think once we start having Africans in baseball, I really think it's over.
yeah, yeah, and it's definitely possible because like with every sport, we NFL, we NBA or something. There was a time where people were like, "Oh, can Africans do this? Can Africans learn it?" But you know, as time will grow, the only thing you just have to give, is that personnel resource. Like,
Yeah.
how do you actually learn it? I'm telling you, people are going to take it up from there because there was a time I remember in the early 2000s, like how many people did you in Africa? How many people played American football? Let's just say
Yeah.
rugby.
Yeah.
Rugby
Not
is
even.
so old, but how many people played American football? But the moment people started to understand how it works, how it goes, now we can see how many directly, even just from Africa, are playing in college football, NFL, and that's going to keep on getting better. It's the trend is going to keep on getting just just recently, we had a guy from Egypt who is currently playing in Colorado, like with Deion
Mm-hmm.
Sanders in
Mm-hmm.
Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing as a left guard,
Mm-hmm.
straight from Egypt. So this is becoming a phenomenon. It's going
Yeah.
to in the next 10 years, it's going to be even much better than this. So if baseball, also, I believe, if we get the right people, the right personnel, it's going to definitely take off because in a way you could I know cricket is not the same, but you can just like liken it to like cricket. Like, cricket
Yeah.
is a thing
Yeah.
in Africa, but
Yeah.
because it doesn't have that much
Doesn't have that much
international
marketing.
appeal. Yeah,
Yeah.
money and international appeal. People are like, nah, I don't really. But once you make them see the appeal and there's personnel to actually train these people because I can tell you, I once played cricket too in my secondary school.
Yeah.
We didn't have people train us. They were like, okay, you are the bowler, you run, you do this, and
Yeah.
you are the batsman,
Yeah.
you bat it out, you first inning, second inning. So we didn't really have too many people training us. We were practically training ourselves off
Yeah.
YouTube. So it wasn't. I can imagine how baseball would be. Imagine cricket. I can imagine how baseball would be even worse. So
Worse. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
We need
yeah,
more, man.
it's a cool initiative if that can be.
Yeah, one day, bro. One day, I'm hoping, especially with the little league. Like I said, I think especially when we have these little league World Series. These kids are not playing from different parts of the world, Japan and and Cuba and all those places. One day I think we'll see some children playing
Good.
from Africa
Interesting.
in the World Series for Little League. But yeah, so finally, just for Afro Ballers, I mean, where do you all envision yourselves going in the next 10 years? What do you want the legacy to be? And the relationships you all are building with players that are
Mhm.
Africans, do you think that you all are continuing to be a hub that can continue to facilitate sports knowledge, sport content to people all across the world, but continue to establish that multinational connection? What is the goal of that? And what type of relationships could you imagine seeing yourselves fostering with all these different African athletes across the world?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, I mean, I can't really speak for the founders,
Yeah,
but
for
I
you.
was, yeah, what I've seen, just working. So, working with, Kelvin and Mr. Elliott, like, it's really interesting just see how their mind operate because, their, I, their goal is once again to stand at that intersection because I think not to really go to like the economic side or everything, but people are now starting to see that because there's a growing audience for African sport among the diaspora. So you go to America, there's a lot of Nigerians, Ghanaians in diaspora. In Europe, the same thing. That's why you see like the BL. They do like this showcase in Paris sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
because like they also try to create a product that will be attractive to the diaspora, the Africans in the diaspora, but at the same time, not lose focus on the base, which is we are creating a league for Africans,
Mm.
right? So, that's why they have the homegrown talent rule where you can't bring so number of players that are foreigners. They have to be Africans and all of that. So I would say, the goal for the platform is to stay at that intersection. Like, so what we do is it's very, very nuanced in the sense that not too many people, are doing that because now
Yeah.
you don't just have to understand what Americans, what Europeans like. You have to know, okay, what are Nigerians back home?
Yeah.
What do they like? So you
Yeah.
have to create that balance. Recently there was a post we made about like a trend that originated from Nigeria. Now the trend, a footballer did it in Europe.
Mm.
Those are the kind of things like people want to see. So the people in Europe, they're like, oh, this player did this trend. What
Where that
exactly
come
is this
from?
trend? We don't know
Mm.
what this guy did. So we then
Connect them.
got connected, like, oh guys, this is what he did. It's
Yeah.
a trend in Nigeria. This is what you do. This is what it means.
Yeah.
So now the local ones are like, oh wow, our trend is going viral. The Africans in the diaspora are like, oh, we now know what this guy did. Oh, so this is what it means. Then you tag the relevant influencers or who did it. Then they go, oh, I like this guy's page. That's
Mm.
how it just works. To be honest,
Yeah.
that's how it just works. So now that you're creating that bridge, you're creating that connection. So same thing too. If there's something trending abroad in Germany, in America, we want to bring it down. So
Yeah.
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I remember the first time we made a post about him, like, who is really this guy? But when he now started, doing the dresses and also showing up for BA events,
Mm-hmm.
people knew who he was locally. So when he came to the BL, for BA event, for example, people can say, "Oh, we know Yoke
This
is the
guy.
one that
Yeah.
wears this," but
Yep.
how did he come about? Through platform like AfroBallers.
Yeah.
So I would say, that's just like the ideas, and in the coming years, for example, the podcast thing that was recently launched,
Yeah.
people would have seen that by now.
Yeah.
Where we interviewed players, talking about their background. So that also would pick off at some point where, and funny enough, it's not just African players, even players that even embrace
Yes. Exactly.
that culture. So that's why I said if it's like a LeBron James. So recently we saw Clay Thompson
Yep.
come to Cameroon.
Yep.
Everyone loved that post. He was
Yep.
dancing to an African song. So
Yep.
you see, people could see the genuine, love that Clay had for the
Yeah.
culture. Imagine him dancing African dance that probably they just taught him in 10, 15
Intense.
minutes.
Exactly. And what
10,
that
15 minutes.
does.
And he did it. Yep. And he did it perfectly.
Yeah.
So imagine him doing that. Everyone loved it. Now,
That's,
if Clay wants to do something tomorrow, no one's going to say, "Oh, Clay this, Clay that."
oh,
And Clay is not even, African in any way, like based on his background.
yeah, so yeah.
So it's not even about just the African players anymore. It even extend. We see Jimmy Butler also.
Mhm.
The same thing. He came to Senegal. He was tasting a Senegalese drink, and that video today, if you play it anywhere, everyone laughs.
Mm.
So that's just like the goal, and so the platform will keep building on that. Keep building more social verticals, to funnel that singular goal. Just be in the middle of both, and just like be the connecting factor, be the bridge, whatever
Bridge. That is
adjective you want to use to
Yeah,
just.
no, man, that is you all are capturing the transnational experience in sports, and this is exactly why I wanted to have you or someone representing this and organization be
Yeah.
part of it because it captures that idea of being the bridge and connecting people and giving people the ability to go back and forth or know what's happening on both sides or multiple sides of the world, especially in the world of sports. And even you talk about Clay, you talked about inspiring, and I know we've talked
Mhm.
about many of these African athletes inspiring kids in Africa. But imagine what some of these athletes like Clay Thompson now are doing for a
Mhm.
lot of these American youth and saying, "Oh, Africa, okay,
Yeah.
that's not bad, right? Like let's go to Africa too. Like if Clay Thompson can do it and go to Cameroon, then I think I want to do that too when I grow up and become an athlete, right? Like so that also opens doors, and that's all we're trying to do, and that's all you're doing as well with AfroBallers. You all are becoming waymakers and opening doors for people to learn more and be educated more because back then, I mean, when we were learning sports, you and I coming up as kids, I mean, we had to really dig deep to get
Yep.
a lot of info from both sides. And I think there was a lot of ignorance back then about African culture and what African athletes were and vice versa. And I think now you're able to connect the dots, you're able to bridge, you're able to create a little bit more understanding, man. And I think that's a powerful thing, not just in the world of sports, but just in society in general. And you know that sports brings people together. Sometimes it tears us apart, but really,
Yeah.
it's just depending on where you're at. But like even from being in Chicago, yeah, I can fight against my Chicago Cub fans, but we come together because of the Bears, right? Like so many different things. It can unify us. So man, Stephen Ojo, like I just want to say any closing words, anything as far as that you want to share before we close it out.
Yeah. Nothing more. Just thank you very much, and thank you for doing this. I believe, this is a very important podcast and platform where what you're doing is really really important, because people just see it every day, but they don't know, like, there's actually a meaning to these things. Like, there's an underlining theme of that connection has to be genuine, and platform like this can help the athletes, various actors, even get involved and be able to even understand how all these things even play out. So I would say, thank you, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I hope that it keeps on growing, and people can actually recognize the value. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, bro. I really, really appreciate it, man. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for
Yeah.
taking the time. I definitely, if there's any way that I can be more of support and vice versa, would really appreciate it. Is there any way that people can follow Afro Ballers if you want to give them the handle and how they can be able to stay in touch with what y'all are doing?
Yeah, it's AfroBallers on IG, AfroBallers FC, but I think just AfroBallers on IG, AfroBallers on everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think we own the. I don't think any platform is close to
One
that
day,
now.
one day, bro. I don't know if this is what the founders envision, but I do pray that you
Mhm.
all become the ESPN or the worldwide leader for African.
Ah.
Bro, like now I don't know. You see, now again, now I'm going off script, but like I don't know if that's something that people really want to do as far as network TV. But bro, like I can imagine that
Mhm.
being something that can happen where when it comes to bringing Africa to the world of sports, Afro Ballers becomes that central leader, man, to be connecting, giving people the story behind the story, right? And instead of just
Mhm.
doing it on the social media, but you're doing it live, you're having correspondence, bro. There's so many amazing things that's coming your way. So again, man, thank you so much, and I look forward again to connecting with you all in the future.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much. Look forward to more things that your platform does.